Okay,
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this virtual meeting of the Brierfield, Reedley and Brierfield Reedley Area Committee. Can I ask everyone to introduce themselves so we know who's who? My name's Councillor Naeem Ashraf. I'm Brierfield Ward Councillor and Chair. Councillor Iqbal?
Yeah, Councillor Yasser Iqbal, Reedley Ward Councillor.
Lynn?
I'm Lynn Rowland, the Committee Administrator.
Thank you. Wayne?
Wayne Forrest, Localities and Policy Manager and Area Coordinator for this committee.
Thank you. Catherine?
Catherine Hughes, Principal Planning Officer.
Thank you very much. Can I ask Councillor Iqbal if he has any interest to declare on any particular items on tonight's agenda? This we are required to do by law. I haven't any interest to declare.
None, Chair.
Thank you very much. First item is public question time. I don't think we've got any public. And do you have any questions or anything which aren't on tonight's agenda, Councillor Iqbal?
No, thank you, Chair.
No. Item 3, to move the minutes.
Yeah, I'll move that, Chair.
Yeah, I'll second them. Thank you. The next item is progress report. Just to let you know, the item 3, the land at Bowland View, that was approved by Policy and Resource to obviously make it surplus, and a planning application which went to Policy and Resource, Reedley Road, that was refused as well. Are you happy to move the progress report, Councillor Iqbal?
Happy to move that, Chair.
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you very much. Obviously, community safety issue and police matters. We don't have any police here today. Obviously, they don't come every month. The next item on the agenda is planning. The first item is application number 20/0450/HHO, erection of a 2-storey side extension on part 2-storey, part single-storey rear extension and formation of parking area to front at 3 Clegg Street, Brierfield. We've got 2 speakers. We have a Mohammed Hasham, the applicant. Mohammed Hasham?
Yes, here, Chair.
Yeah. Do you want to speak first, or do you want your agent to speak first?
Whichever you prefer.
I'll let your agent speak first if you want.
Okay, that's fine.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Just about, Mr. Ilyas.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it was the extension that we were talking in regards to. I know the planner, she raised an issue with privacy with the bungalows at Ray. There is a large tree there that acts like a natural privacy screen. We also mentioned that we can raise the boundary fence. Also, we set back the first floor element to so it reduces more space from the boundary. The reason for the client, my client, the applicant, large family, he's got his parents, he's got children as well as a growing family. So that was the whole reason to extend that property to house everyone. But I believe that I think it's been a bit too harsh with the privacy with the bungalows really. They're on a straight angle. There's a property at 35 Clegg Street that was a similar build that was approved, but I think the proposal that we put forward should be approved as well. That's all I would like to say, really, to be honest. We have listened to the planner's concerns, and we did address them, raising the fence higher, set back first floor element. Also, there's a large tree there. I'm just repeating everything again. The large tree there that acts like a natural privacy screen as well.
No problem. That's fine. Thank you for that, Mr. Ilyas. Mr. Hasham?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so just going on the back of the application, originally it was a side and back, and with a double story on the back as well. So basically to add some additional bedrooms. Initially we requested our application, which initially and intentionally we put in the application to be quite modest and not to kind of push the boundaries in regards to planning. So we had a smooth application, and obviously before we went ahead with planning, we did look at the planning application number 35, and there was issues raised on that. So obviously before putting the application in, we visited residents, neighbours, spoke with them directly, explained to them about the planning that we're proposing to do, and asked if they, had any concerns in between neighbours, and see if we could obviously address them before the application went in. There was no concerns raised. I believe the planning department sent out the formal letters that they do, and again, nothing was received back. We also looked at the application for number 35. And obviously we looked at that. We looked at the bungalow that faced that as well. And obviously there was a difference in regards to the type of elevation that was between the two properties as well, which obviously we do take into account as well. I just wanted to mention, because the bungalow that faces number 35, I believe the side elevation is a gable end, which from my understanding, gable just basically means the type of roof, the side of the roof that faces is the triangle part. But if you look at, in actual fact, if you look at the bungalow itself, it is actually basically the front of the property. So technically it's a gable end, but in practicality, it's the front of the house for that resident. So they got a front door. They've got part of their living room window, the lounge window, and also another window, which I believe is a bathroom window, but I'm not 100% on that. And obviously, it's the front doors there. So every day when they're coming in and out, they're using that side of the property. So it's the front of the property. Technically, like you said, it is a gable end. And also, I just want to mention, because the distance from the property at 35 up to the front of the property which it faces is, I've physically measured it, and it's only 7 meters. And the first floor, if you can see, it's got basically four windows on there as well. So obviously that's what's facing the property. In regards to the proposal that we've got, we've proposed, like I said, initially we went and intentionally we proposed a modest extension, which we didn't want to push the boundaries. We wanted a smooth application. And the distance between the bungalow and the extension at number 3, which is the proposed, it's considerably more than what it is at number 35. And obviously that, I think, needs to be taken into account. Taking into account, obviously, the gable end, and obviously it being the front of the property, even though it is a gable end. Initially, our distance on the first proposal, which was 4 meters, we were 9 meters away from the shortest end and 11.10 meters from the furthest end, because the boundary wall is slightly angled. And taking into the consideration of us reducing from 4 meters to 3.5 meters, that considerably changed now. So it's 9.5 meters from the closest side and 11.6 meters from the furthest side, which is more than 50% further away than what was accepted at number 35. And also we've taken into consideration privacy. We've proposed glazed glass, high boundaries, and we want to work with the planning department to try and get the proposal recommended for approval. Obviously there's been the COVID issue, and that's delayed, and extensions have been requested and accepted on, I think, 2 or 3 occasions. And I just want to say, obviously, we've, like I said, trying to do our best to stay within the local area. And initially, the investment was done, taking into account the extension at number 35, taking into account our discussions with the residents who are opposite and who are on the side as well, and obviously no objection was taken from them. So we went ahead with a proposal, Chair, and hopefully the different measurements to hopefully cover the concerns.
Right. Thank you very much for that, Hashim.
Thank you.
Can I bring in Catherine, please?
Of course, Chair. Just to run through with you and respond to some of the comments raised. We do have amended plans which set back the first floor only, and it's proposed to obscure the 2 first floor bedroom windows in the rear elevation. And whilst that would slightly reduce the privacy impact, it's not good design to have bedroom windows obscure glazed, and that automatically sets off alarm bells that there is privacy issues. And it wouldn't mitigate the overbearing impact and the proximity to the rear boundary and the rear elevation of the bungalow. So it would still raise an unacceptable impact on that property as set out in the report. So the recommendation is still to refuse. Obviously, each application, it's on its own merits. We undertook a site visit yesterday, and as members saw, it's quite open on that boundary. Yes, there's a fence there, but there's no large tree that obscures the views to any great impact. 35 Clegg Street is not the same as this. I think the applicant misunderstood we're not talking about a gable roof. What we're talking about is a gable or side elevation. Yes, there is a door in that, and yes, there is some secondary windows, but it's not a primary elevation. Rear to rear, front to front, primary elevation. It's quite clearly set out in the design guide. 21 metres is what you're meant to achieve between those 2 elevations. It doesn't have that now, so anything that you build there is going to breach that. Side to a front or rear is 12 metres, and that's the difference between 35 Clegg Street and this application. Quite clearly, any 2-storey element on there at the rear is going to impact on that bungalow. We saw how shallow the rear garden was of number 3, and also went round and looked at the bungalow at the rear. Both of them have really shallow gardens, and unfortunately, that means that the impact would be there regardless. 2-storey side, single-storey rear, we can mitigate against. A 3-metre high fence on that boundary, again, is not acceptable. Permitted development rights allow up to 2 metres. 3 metres, so close to their rear bedroom window, would obviously have an impact on that. So on that, we would recommend refusal. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can I bring in Councillor Yasser Iqbal?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Chair, I think obviously having looked at the application, it is one of them that it would have been helpful for us to attend the site to actually visualise and see what the issues were. And obviously the applicant was contending for the extension and the elevation, whereas obviously the planning, the report that we received was saying there was overbearing, and I couldn't, to be honest, looking at the plans, visualise what the overbearing issues would have been, and this is why, and that's something actually we didn't do at 35 Clegg Street. I think that was only a couple of years ago, maybe less, when it came to this committee. So I thought it was helpful actually going to the site. In terms of I think it was the architect, or maybe the applicant, of both, about the large tree. I'm not sure that on its own, I certainly didn't see anything which was significant, which would cover or alleviate any privacy issues. So I'm not sure that's a good point on its own. But what I am encouraged by is that there is this glazed glass, or the obscured glass, which the applicant is now suggesting. I hear what Catherine says about actually that doesn't really mitigate the overbearing issue. But I think that does, to some extent, at least the applicant has gone and addressed some of the issues that were being raised, and that may mitigate something. Turning back and comparing it to 35 Clegg Street, Chair, as you remember, I think it was a unanimous decision of this committee that despite the recommendation for approval, that we went against that recommendation. I think it was a unanimous decision, and I can't quite remember. We went to Policy and Resource Committee, and that's where it was approved. I wasn't too keen on that application, as you know, Chair, and I think Councillor McCormick, who I think I heard join this conference, was also against it for a number of reasons. but I think the issue is this, isn't it? Really, is it significantly overbearing, and how does it compare to 35 Clegg Street? And of course, it's evident there. And again, I think it was helpful for us to attend the site to see what the comparison is, because this current application is rear to rear, whereas the other one is rear to front. I think is the bungalow. But as I think it was the architect or the applicant suggested, that there would still be some impact. Obviously, it's a front door; it would be used regularly, and there is a secondary window. It's not the main bedroom window or anything, but obviously there is some impact, and it is quite a significant extension which was made at 35 Clegg Street. I'm not sure if it's as big as this, or if not bigger, but certainly it's a significant application, because that was one of the issues that we argued about in the previous meeting about 35 Clegg Street. So, trying to sum it up then, Chair, is it overbearing? And initially, my view, if I'm quite upfront, was that it was overbearing. But I think, Chair, that having compared it to 35 Clegg Street, and I think that was the important, certainly the decisive thing for me, comparing it to the other application at Clegg Street. And I hear what the planning officer, Catherine, says about obviously that being a gable end, and but I think that it isn't as obviously it can be distinguished, I think, from 35 Clegg Street, but it's similar in some respects, because there is still that impact on the privacy, even though if it's a gable end, and the obscured glass which the applicant has suggested is perhaps, I think, is another factor which leans me towards approving the application. The large tree to which it was referred and the fence being higher, I'm not sure is perhaps the better points. I'm not really persuaded by them, if I'm quite honest, because I don't think them on their own are determinative factors. But for the other reasons, Chair, like I said, I think initially I wasn't, probably indecisive, I think, initially, until I had the site visit. But having done that, Chair, I would recommend that we approve this application. Now, I understand that if it is approved and it goes to policy and resource, I think that's still the position. Maybe Catherine, you can enlighten us if that's changed. I think it's probably the same, even though there's amended plans. But I would move for approval, Chair, of this application.
Right, so you're obviously moving approval. I'll second that. So obviously it's unanimous. However, can I bring Catherine? Will this now go to policy, Catherine?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to clarify between you that the gable of the one facing 35 Clegg Street, although there's a door in it, it's not a front door, it's a side door, and it's a bathroom window and part of the lounge, as we saw on the site visit. It is different. It's fundamentally different in terms of what's protected nationally and locally in policy. If you've got habitable rooms, then you need to protect those. And on that basis and the impact that it would have on that property, it would have to be referred to Policy and Resources Committee. Thank you.
Right, that's fine. Can I just tell the applicant, Hasham, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll just let you know, obviously it's been approved by Brierfield and Reedley Area Committee. However, it's going to go to Policy and Resource Committee. Lynn, sorry, do you have a date when it will go to the next Policy and Resource?
It'll be the 26th of November.
Yeah. So, Hashim, your application will now go to the Policy and Resource Committee on the 26th of November. Is that okay? Yeah. Yeah,
that's fine. I just want to mention, obviously, on a point that Catherine mentioned in regards to
Hasham, obviously the decision's been made now, so I can't bring you back in. It's been approved by this committee and it goes to the Policy and Resource Committee now.
Okay, that's fine. We'll raise some points on there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. The next item is application 20/0474/FUL, erection of a single-storey extension and works to form an extended playground at Holy Trinity Roman Catholic Primary School, Halifax Road, Brierfield. We have Miss Mary Lyle, the head teacher at Holy Trinity Primary School. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, you've got.
Hello?
Yeah, you can speak. Fire away.
Okay, thank you. First of all, thank you for allowing me to attend your committee meeting tonight.
No problem.
I'm here speaking on behalf of the governors at Holy Trinity Primary School. As you see, we've got planning permission in for a single-storey extension at the back of the school, which is for a nursery to be attached to Holy Trinity Primary School. Holy Trinity Primary School is a very small primary school. It's only 105 children on roll. Most primary schools, as you know, would have double that, so 210 children. Some are even double that again. The nursery that we're wishing to be granted is just for 13 nursery children, which can either attend full-time or sometimes parental choice is just to attend part-time, so it might be just mornings or just afternoons. So it's just for an extra additional 13 children at Holy Trinity. We've obviously done some market research prior to putting in planning permission and prior to even moving forward with the nursery at Holy Trinity. And our market research shows that most of our children would be siblings that are already attending our schools. So therefore, I've looked at the objections that you kindly showed me where they were online, and they're all around the issue of Halifax Road being a very busy road and traffic. So the fact that there's only 13 children that would be coming to the school, half of those, if not more than half of those, according to our research, for the next 2 or 3 years as siblings, and I would expect that to be the case going forward as well. So if you work out the maths there, it would only be an additional 6 children coming to the school, so 6 more families, so 6 cars in the great scheme of things isn't a lot to increase traffic on Halifax Road. The majority of our children live locally as well, so we encourage them to walk to school where possible and not to even drive to school to avoid pollution and obviously traffic and safety and all that. So we're talking 13 children, more than half of those are siblings, so there is no more extra increase on traffic. The other half, yes, there's 6 cars, 6 additional cars. Some will just come morning, so they won't even be coming at the rush hour. Some will be at lunchtime for an afternoon session. So again, it wouldn't be at those busy times of the day, morning and after school drop-offs. So in light of that, the objections that I've read online, the neighbours probably don't realise that it's just the very, very few extra additional children, and the fact that these children would be perhaps being dropped off at dinner time rather than 9 o'clock in the morning. We do have a lot of traffic increase due to Marsden Heights being built across the road from Halifax, on the side of the Halifax Road. I don't know, you know, the purpose of the nursery is because we find that there's a demand for it. Our families are wanting a nursery attached to the school to make life easier, so that they're just dropping off their family of children at one setting rather than having to go to a couple of settings in the morning. So there is a demand for a nursery. We'd love to have those children for an additional 12 months, 18 months prior to school age, so that we can nurture them and give them the best start in life. And like I say, it is just a very small extension for 13 children, and more than half of those are already siblings, so the parents are already in that journey. to school.
That's fine. Thank you for that.
No, thank you for listening.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
So yeah, I can hear you, Councillor McCormack. Go on.
Is it possible to just add a word to that? Am I allowed?
Yeah, you are,
Mr. Chairman, I've been the governor at Holy Trinity for 20 odd years. It's an absolutely delightful little school and really causes nobody any trouble because we have first class teachers who really care about the children, about what they're doing and about the community that they live in. They are absolutely excellent. Can I invite you to come and have a look at our little school? It's a delight, Mr. Chairman. But can I just support Mrs. Lyle in this application? I think this is really worthwhile and is going to be really good for the parents in the area to be able to drop both the children who go to school and nursery off at the same time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak.
No problem. I've just got one question, then I'll bring Councillor Yasser Iqbal in. I know you said, do you have majority of the children, are they from Brierfield and Reedley, or are they from outside? Because with it being obviously a religious school.
Yeah, majority of our children are from Brierfield and Reedley. We do obviously maybe have 25% that come from Nelson or just higher up. My geography is not as good as
Briarcliff Road and that. Yeah.
We do have some outside of Brierfield, but majority of our children are serving our local community.
That's fine, thank you. Councillor Yasser Iqbal.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, as you've seen, there have been a number of objections. I've been contacted by a few of these residents, and I think you can probably see from the public response that the main issue is in respect of traffic. And I think the head teacher was quite frank and candid that there is that problem. And to be fair, I'm not sure that Holy Trinity is the culprit in this. It's probably more Marsden Heights than Holy Trinity. I don't live far from this school, as you know, Chair.
Yeah.
And I drive past it literally I used to drive past it every morning for work, now working from home, so I don't get to have the pleasure of going past that traffic. But when it was in full peak, before the COVID-19 situation, it is quite a dangerous situation. And I think the report, I think it's from LCC, regarding highways, it's at page 7 of that report, or page 7 of item 6. And I think he says that he witnessed a few incidents where, that's paragraph 4, page 7, where he refers to some instances of a vehicle parking on zigzags, and I've seen that, and failing to comply with the crossing patrol. But again, I'm not sure I'd blame the parents of Holy Trinity. It's very irresponsible parking from parents. I mean, there may be some from Holy Trinity, but predominantly it's a Marsden Heights issue, it must be said. But that doesn't deflect from the fact that, Chair, the proximity of Marsden Heights and Holy Trinity, because although the Marsden Heights official entrance, I think, is towards Hibson Road, there's a lot of kids who will get dropped off near the speed camera. And parking is a big issue because there are residents that live directly opposite Holy Trinity, who always complain because often parents are parking in front of their driveways. Again, probably a mixture of Marsden Heights and Holy Trinity. So I think, for me, Chair, I think the issue that I have is the parking issue, the traffic issue. But looking at the report from LCC, I think what they've suggested is that there'd be, I think there's been a travel plan submitted by the school. I've not seen it, but I think it's what the head teacher was referring to, that there may be a staggered start, which would probably alleviate that issue. I think that's at, again, page 7 under the section headed 13th of October 2020. So that may alleviate the issue, I think, in terms of a staggered start. But again, the other point the head teachers raised about some of the new kids being siblings of other children, again, that probably will mitigate any traffic issues. But of course, that's not a guarantee by any way, and I'm not sure anybody can not even the school centre, this is exactly what the number would be. So I'm not sure I've made my mind up yet exactly, Chair. I might just stay on the fence until I hear from what you say. But I think the only issue that I have realistically is highways. And maybe that we take Councillor McCormick's offer of doing of attending the school and just having maybe a site visit. I'm not sure, Chair, if you think that would be beneficial in making the decision. But I think that's all I have to say at the moment, Chair. I won't move anything until I hear from you what you've got to say. But I think the crux of my position is the highways. I think that's the only issue. I think everything else has been addressed quite adequately, and it's the actual extension is towards the back end of the school, I think, which is the. To be fair, I've been contacted by some of the residents at Hayhead Street, yes, but apart from the highways, I'm not sure that any objection is sustainable because it's not a significant extension. It's not overbearing on the properties at Hayhead Street. The only concern that I have really is the highways one, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Iqbal. I've just been Catherine. I've just got a couple of questions for Catherine as well. Obviously, obviously the public response, and obviously it's saying under the impression the land is protected and will never be built on, which obviously is now the. Obviously, we have discussed the traffic issue. What they're on about, obviously, someone's sent a comment about loss of privacy and overlooking to neighbouring gardens.
Oh. Yeah, through you, Chair. Just to update you on a couple of those matters. We are proposing a condition for the travel plan, which is condition 4, and subject to that condition, LCC didn't raise any further objections. There was further information provided during the course of the application, and LCC wanted to go out when it wasn't the school holidays, if you will, although those were extended somewhat this year, in order to assess the traffic impact. And I think that's what they've done, and they are now happy with that. You're quite right, we can't condition that they are siblings, but I think it is a relatively modest extension, and there is certainly adequate room to accommodate it within the site. We've noted the concerns from some of the residents. This is a single-storey flat roof extension, so it's not going to be as high as what's there existing. It's on a lower land level, so the residents will in effect look over that. There's not going to be any privacy issues. The distances have been measured, are acceptable, and I think the only concern that we and LCC Highways had was regarding the traffic, and we think with this traffic plan that would mitigate that, and we would consider that it would be acceptable.
Right, so you're obviously basically saying you're happy with the travel plan, and everything else you're happy with as well. The objections that have been put in, the overbearing, etc., etc.
Yeah, through you, Chair. It's been addressed in the report, the visual amenity and residential amenity impact. Yeah. We haven't seen the travel plan. That is a condition that it will be submitted, and obviously LCC will look at that and look at how that can be implemented in order to relieve any traffic congestion.
Sorry, Catherine, but if we were to approve this, and with this condition, would we as councillors be able to see that traffic plan before obviously it's agreed that permission is granted? Is that possible or not? I don't know. You see, I'm not.
Through you, Chair, it's usually a technical document that we would send through to LCC Highways, right. Their comments. The travel plan, their comments and everything else is all publicly viewable. If members thought that there were an issue with it, then yes, we could bring it before you, or if you wanted us to agree it with you before that. But it would be a condition that we would attach to the approval. But yes, everything is publicly available and everyone can view it and comment.
I think if Councillor Yasser Iqbal is happy, I'd like to move.
Ask the question, just leading on from Catherine's point about this travel plan, Catherine. I've just reading recommendation 4, which I've just looked at when you referred to it, about the travel plan. I think I missed that when I read the report initially. That a travel plan shall be submitted to and approved in writing. And then the next one is this must include details of measures to reduce travel by private car and a schedule of staggered school times for students. So I think the head teacher was referring to a staggered school time, and the nursery kids won't be starting at 9 o'clock. Is that something that we kind of, it looks like it is, but I just want to clarify, is that something that we can condition to say the nursery students can or should start, let's say 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock? Is that something we can actually condition? And how do we enforce that then? Or
I think through you, Chair, the travel plan would involve that the school submitting details of that, which we would then agree, and then it would be a breach of condition if that wasn't met. I think if you're talking about a separate condition, saying that they won't start till 10 o'clock, I think that would be more difficult for us to achieve, and also you don't necessarily want it to be a 10 o'clock start.
Sorry, that was just an example.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not just an example. I just want to get my head around the context. That's fine, Chair. I think you were going to move
it will be included in the travel plan.
Right. So obviously, thank you for that, Catherine. So can I move we approve this planning application with the condition that we see the travel plan before obviously it's given, the go ahead. Is that possible, Catherine?
Yes, through you, Chair. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Is it that committee you want to see it, or yourself as Chair?
I think because obviously Councillor Iqbal is involved, I'd like it to come to committee then, please.
Right. Okay.
Are you happy to second that, Councillor Iqbal?
I'm more than happy to second that. I think that will. I think it's probably adequately going to be addressed. It sounds like in the travel plan anyway, but I think I'm more than happy to second your motion to approve this application, subject to that condition.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Can I just bring? Can I just let Miss Lyle know? Are you there?
I'm here. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So obviously we've approved the planning application, just with the condition that obviously councillors can see this timetable for the children being dropped off of the traffic plan. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Not a problem. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you for letting me come to speak. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
So, can I leave now?
Yeah, of course you can. Unless you want to.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye, Mary.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah. The next item, planning application, is 20/0524/PIP. Permission in principle erection of up to 6 dwelling houses at land to the north of Rockwood, Halifax Road. We have a Mr. Brian Summer.
Yeah, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman. Yes, good evening, Chairman and members. I'm Brian Sumner. I'm the agent on the planning application from Avalon Town Planning. There was a couple of points I wanted to reinforce to support your officer recommendation of this application in the face of quite numerous objection letters from neighbours. I think there's 16 of them altogether. Just to draw members' attention to when they make their decision this evening. The first is this type of application is what it says in the description, a permission in principle. And in the permission in principle process, there are 2 parts. The first part is what we are applying for. The second part, which will come later, will be matters for consideration of detail, as you get in a normal planning application, like layout, mass, appearance, access, and so on. And because that's in the second part, that very much limits the planning issues that can be considered in this application, the first part, to basically land use considerations. In other words, is the site suitable for housing or not? To do that, the officers have concluded that we are in a sustainable location and that we are in compliance with the strategic planning policies for housing as set out in policy LIV1 of your core strategy. And that's pretty obvious when you look at the site, when you see that it is connected to adjoining, in fact, the main urban area. The second main issue of principle that you've been asked to consider is whether or not the current open space allocation, in other words, a big green wedge that's painted over the site in your open space documents, is appropriate or not. And there's a couple of issues on that which I'd like to point out to you. One is this is not recreational land at the moment. It is distinct and separate from the golf club, and I think the designation of the golf club as as recreation outdoor space was the purpose of your document. That is because it's separated from the golf club by a thumping great hedgerow. The land is overgrown. That's a bit of a slope and it's not really suitable for that recreation use. And secondly, as part of the assessment of the recreation outdoor space requirement, this Reedley Ward, the site is in, has a massive oversupply of outdoor sports area. And I think their officers have put that oversupply at 46.95 in their officer report. I will point out a slight error there. They say that removing this site would reduce the surplus outdoor sports to 40.95 hectares, which is a loss of 6 hectares. But of course, this site is only 0.6 hectares. So we reduce the actual surplus to 46.35, as far as I can tell. And as those nominal amounts, given that amount of surplus, then there is no really reason why it should be retained as the open space allocation. Given those particular points, Chairman, I hope you'll be able to support the officer recommendation of approval, and I submit that that's what you should do. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. Catherine, can I just ask, before obviously we move with this, this is not the same sort of application that went to policy before, is it? There was a planning application somewhere on Halifax Road.
No, through you, Chair. No, it's not. It's a different site.
So, right. Chair, sorry, before you, can I ask a question to Catherine, please, Chair? Yeah. I'm just trying to, normally there's a plan or a map or something to show where this actual site is. There isn't. Maybe you can help us, Catherine. I know it says Halifax Road and it's near the Nelson Golf Club.
It's up the top.
Oh, is it? Where? I'm just trying to visualise. I know is it behind effectively King's Causeway to the top end?
It is.
It's through you, Chair. When you're driving up Halifax Road, you've got the turn off to King's Causeway on your right hand side, and it's just after that. It's a large bungalow, isn't it, on the corner? And it's just after that large bungalow, and then before you get to the next couple of houses on your way up to Briercliff.
Can I just ask also, Catherine, obviously there's been a lot of objections to this. Obviously access onto a busy road, ruin the appearance, etc. Will ruin access to existing public footpaths, etc. Detriment loss of green space, all this stuff. You know, I know you've commented on it, but that obviously your decision is for approval, whoever's the planning officer said. But obviously you've got the golf course there next to it as well, and obviously I know they're saying it's just a principal planning application. If we were to approve this, then obviously they'd have to come back with a proper design, but the basics of the planning application would be that they would have got the planning application for 6 properties, wouldn't they?
Through you, Chair, this is a new type of application, as Mr. Sumner mentioned earlier. It's not an outline. So strictly speaking, it's not an outline and then a reserved matters. It's a permission in principle and then technical details. Part of those technical details are things like contamination, drainage. I think there's a call authority. So things like those technical reports would have to be submitted. Now, because it's a very broad brush, we are purely looking at the principle here. So we can't put conditions on it or look at things that highways and environmental health and the call authority raise on something like this. That would come at a later stage. So yes, you could grant permission now, and it may well be that if one of those technical reports raises an issue, highways access, for example, which has been mentioned, that it might be you can't achieve the development. It is a very new one. We've had a few of these before. We've refused some and we've approved some. We've won an appeal on one that we refused in Colne. So it is purely on the principle of it. And in that case, if the principle of housing there is acceptable, then we have to approve it and look at the technical details at a later stage. In terms of the footpaths, they're protected, so the development would have to take those into account. And I think at the end of the report, I think Charlotte's put on what issues the technical application would be. so that it would be contamination, your drainage, your ecology, which was raised in your landscaping. So we can't look at any of those issues. The site is adjacent to the settlement boundary, so it accords with Live 1 as it stands until we get sites allocated, which hopefully will be in the next few months. But in terms of is housing acceptable on that site, we have to say as planning officers, yes, it is. It may well be at the later stage that some of the technical information comes in and we have issues with it. But again, that's something for that next stage of the application. So our recommendation is to approve it.
Councillor McCormack, do you want to say anything?
Not really, Mr. Chairman, because they've not been out very much since March, I think a couple of times. I haven't really had a very good look at it, and so I'm not over familiar just whereabouts it actually is. And I do apologise for that, but I haven't been out very much. I would like to say that once you open things up, unfortunately, it takes on a new life of its own. But that is just the only issue that I would have up there, that anything we do would open up great ranges of land and cause, big developments, which would spoil, as you know, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I agree.
That last one, when we looked up there and we saw the actual site, it is so important to keep some greenery, isn't it? But that would be my only comment, Mr. Chairman. And I do apologise because usually I do my homework properly, but things not being quite what they are. So
Catherine, so if, for example, if we were to refuse this on obviously some of the stuff that's obviously the Greenland and everything, is that possible?
Through you, Chair, it would depend on what you wanted to refuse it on. I mean, obviously, there is a surplus of open space in Reedley, so we would struggle with that. And I think I can understand what Mrs. McCormack's referring to regarding the green space, but there's a massive golf course at the back of it, which is obviously protected. So in terms of greenery in that area, you've got that substantial amount. So I think we would struggle to refuse it on the principle, which is what we're looking at. It's whether there's issues with the technical matters we would have to see, but I can't see a reason that we could refuse.
Right, sorry. Can I defer this to next month's area committee, please, if that's possible, for a site visit?
Oh, good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That's helpful, Chair.
Are you happy to second that, Councillor Iqbal?
I'll second that, Chair.
Yeah.
Because
so
I think it'd be helpful
obviously, this is deferred for a site visit before next month's area committee.
Excellent.
Yeah, Mr. Summers, did you get that?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I understood that.
Yeah.
So I invited to the site inspection, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, please, if that's the decision.
That's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for attending.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's no planning appeals. No, item 7, enforcement. Obviously, Councillor Iqbal, it's there.
Yeah, can I just have a question on this, Chair? In terms of enforcement, in particular, item 3 on that one. What is happening with enforcement? Obviously, there's a lockdown looming in less than 4 hours, or in about 4 hours. What is happening with general enforcement? Is that still taking place during the 4-week lockdown period, which may be longer than 4 weeks, but let's just say it's 4 weeks? What is happening, Catherine? I wondered if you could just give clarity on that point, please.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I've not been told that there's anything changed. Obviously, we still have issues in terms of the courts catching up on their backlog for prosecutions. But what we've done in this case, we've served a notice because obviously the appeal was dismissed.
Yeah.
The notice doesn't take effect until the 13th of January next year. So they've got time to comply with that. And we'd have to review it if things change and there's any impact on that.
Right, so they've got until the 13th. Yeah, it says on the report, doesn't it? Yeah, fine. When it says, though, it says taking effect on, so it's served on the 7th of October, taking effect on the 18th of November. Excuse my ignorance, but I just want to see what is meant by taking effect on. What's that difference to complying?
That's the notice takes effect, and it gives you a time scale in which to complete it, which is what the 13th of January is. So we would inspect on or after the 13th of January to see if they've complied.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that's no problem. Thank you for that. Capital programme, there's just one, Councillor Iqbal, and this has been on for a while now. We've got £627 remaining in the pot for the provision and maintenance of the red grit bins. Obviously, as previously explained, this is not enough to fill all the bins, and as the maintenance and refilling of the grit bins is revenue expenditure, no additional funding can be allocated. Obviously, Reedley Harrows Parish Council have agreed to maintain the 7 red grit bins in their area, which leaves 23 bins in Brierfield, which obviously, if not used for their correct purpose, will become a hazard on the highway. We've deferred this on numerous times. We've asked it to go to policy and resource as well for some funding, but obviously that was refused. And following a recent report on vandalism to one of the bins, obviously we've been asked to reconsider this item. It's recommended that the remaining funds be used to remove the existing bins from site. I don't know what you feel now.
Oh dear.
Yeah, Chair, I'm not. Obviously, it's coming to that time of the year, isn't it? Where
it only takes one bad winter, doesn't it?
I think this year might be one of them.
I don't know what you feel, Councillor Iqbal. Shall we then ask one more time to policy and resource if they can find some funding for us? You do sit on there anyway as a policy resource member. See if we can get some money. If not, then obviously at next month's area committee, we just obviously go with the recommendation then.
Yeah, I think let's give it one more
last chance.
Circumstances now from last time are different because firstly it's the time of the year, and then obviously the national crisis that we have, health crisis we have, may focus minds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So did you get that? Sorry, Lynn. That obviously we're requesting policy and resource to find some funding if possible, please.
Yes, I've got that.
Yeah. Thank you. Item 9, reopening of Brierfield Town Centre. Basically, what we're asking for, well, what the officer who's had a look and what they're recommending is that we have 3 hand sanitizer units at a cost of £1,495 per unit. This is made up of £345 for the unit itself, £100 for branding, £50 for the chain and padlock, and £1,000 for 20-week supply of sanitizer, which is a total cost of £4,485. 15 lamppost banners costing £2,450 plus publicity, which is £350. The grand total is £7,285, which uses all the ERDF funding, less £25. And then obviously we've been asked to suggest where the 3 hand sanitising stations should be located. The venues will be responsible for putting them out and bringing them in and checking the levels and the streets where the lamppost banners should go. Councillor Iqbal?
Yeah, Chair, I think in terms of the hand sanitizer stations, I think that's a good idea. I think that's probably money well spent, especially where they're going to be. I don't think we need them in many places in Brierfield, thankfully, because we don't have maybe as big a centre as Nelson does. In respect to the other things, Chair, I think the banners, you may have a different view on this, but I think putting banners up and adverts up is not going to make a difference, in the sense that everybody knows what coronavirus is, everybody knows there's a responsibility, and the fact there's banners on won't necessarily, in my view, make a difference in that person's attitude as to how they're going to behave, either hygienically or any other way. So that's my provisional view. I mean, I think hand sanitizer stations are a good idea, but looking at the cost of the banners, I'm not sure it can be justified. That's the only reservation I have more than anything else. I think the hand sanitizer station is a good idea.
I think, to be quite honest, Councillor, I do agree with what you're saying, simply because the banners are at a cost of 2,450. And I remember before, when on the benches and lampposts, like the 2 metre distance, keep safe, keep, all them sort of banners were just all ripped off and thrown on the floor and everything. So, and I think this could happen with these as well. But the hand sanitizer, I definitely agree with. It's just, obviously, we need to find out, because obviously wherever we put it, the shopkeepers will have to be responsible for them as well. So I don't know what you think, if we can meet up at the weekend and obviously go and speak to some of the shopkeepers if they're prepared to do it as well.
Yeah, I think that might be a good idea. But yeah, I think hand sanitizer sessions, I've got no issue with this. The other aspect, because the other point really is this, isn't it? That the message is out there, not only on the news and social media, and everybody knows what the message is. Putting banners up will make a massive difference, and at that cost, I don't think it's justified.
So you're happy to move that with the hand sanitizing units and obviously the publicity as well?
Yeah.
But obviously,
may I just come in, Mr. Chairman? I only from the Parish Council point of view, of course, but I think Councillor Iqbal is right. I think it's a real waste of money to put the banners up, and plus the fact that we use a lot of our lamp standers to do religious banners twice a year, and then Christmas stuff. It wouldn't have the same impact, I don't think. I agree.
Yeah, no, I agree, Councillor McCormack. So we're happy to move that. We'll go with the 3 hand sanitizers and the publicity, but we're not happy to go with the 15 lamppost banners, and we try to come up with some other ways to use the rest of the funding. Are you happy to move that, Councillor Iqbal?
Yeah, I'm happy to move that, Chair.
Yeah, I'll second that. Item 10, there's no Brierfield Town Centre improvements grants. Item 11, problem sites. Obviously, there isn't any at the moment. If any members do have any, please let the committee members, know, either Lynn or one of the service managers. Item 12, sorry, is exclusion of the public and press.
So you need to just agree between you that you are going to exclude the public and press, and then we will end the live stream.
Obviously, now we will be excluding the public and press, and obviously the live stream will be finishing. Are we happy to do that, Councillor Iqbal?
Yeah, I'm happy with that, Chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'll just let you know when the live stream is